Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's English lesson. So, today we are going to be retrieving information and understanding vocabulary. The first thing that you'll need is you'll need to go into your pack and you'll need to find the reading comprehension, which is called Darwin, the Evolution of an Idea. You'll also need out of your pack a highlighter and a pen or pencil. So, make sure you pause the video while you go and find those things. So, the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to read the extract by yourself. If you come across any words that you're not sure about, you might want to underline them. You might want to reread the sentence, see if you can use the context to work out what they might mean. If not, we will go through lots of the tricky vocabulary as we go together. So pause the video, read it through yourself first, see if you can understand the meaning of it, and then continue. So now we're going to start reading it through together and making sure that you really understand what this extract is about. So, Darwin, the evolution of an idea. First of all, where have you seen that word evolution before? Have you seen it in our science lessons? Okay, so evolution. Have you ever noticed how you can start off intending to do one thing, yet end up doing something completely different? That doesn't necessarily mean it's been a disastrous waste of time. In fact, it could result in something truly life-changing. Take the life of Charles Darwin, for example. So he didn't start out planning to invent evolution or discover it. He kind of started out doing some quite different things, but ended up finding out about evolution on the way. The theory of evolution. You will, no doubt, know that Darwin, from 1809 to 1882, think about what those dates might mean, was a key figure in the development of the theory of evolution. So they're assuming that you've already done the science lesson. Obviously, you'll know about Darwin. We've mentioned him in science before. And he was a key figure in the development of the theory of evolution. So he wasn't the only person looking at evolution, but he was one of the most important people. This idea, which is still controversial for some, suggested how animals undergo tiny changes from generation to generation. So if it's controversial, have a think what that might mean. Does everybody agree with it? So I'm going to make a little note here, run out of room at the side there, to say that not everybody agrees. So some people, for lots of different reasons, might not completely agree with that. So it suggested how animals undergo tiny changes. So if they're undergoing tiny changes, that means that tiny changes are happening to them. And from generation to generation. Think about who might be in each generation. What does that mean? So you are one generation, your mum and dad are the next generation up. Their mum and dad are the next generation up, so your grandparents. Their mum and dad are the next generation up, so your great grandparents. So that's what we mean by generation to generation, from children to their parents, to their parents, to their parents, or from parents to their children, to their children, to their children, to their children. These changes that helped creatures to adapt to their environments will be passed on to their offspring to improve the species so it continues to thrive and reproduce. So again, think back to our science lessons. If they are adapting, what are they having to do? Can they stay exactly the same? Or are they having to... Oh, I don't know what happened to my pen there. Let's try that again. Oh, that's a bit strange. Let's try that again. So they're having to change. Okay, so they're having to change with their environment. So the places that they live to make sure that they can survive, to make sure that they can do really well. And they'll be passed on to their offspring. Now, who might their offspring be? If they're passing it on, could they pass it on to their mums and dads? Would that work? Who might they pass it on to? I don't think it would be their mums and dads. To improve the species so it continues to thrive and reproduce. Again, remember that reproduce from our science work when we did our year 5 catch up unit. Okay, so when they are then having children themselves. The ones that don't, well, let's just say that nature takes care of them. Hmm, nature takes care of them. I don't think they're giving them like a nice bubble bath, taking care of them that way. What would happen if the animals aren't well adapted, so they can't stay warm in a cold environment, or they can't eat the kind of food that lives there? Are they going to survive, or are they going to not? So, education. Darwin started by following in his father's footsteps. He began training to be a doctor in Scotland, so he copied what his dad did. However, he soon tired of his studies at medical school, so his disappointed father sent him to Cambridge University. So it wasn't like he was tired, like sleepy tired, but he was bored with it. He didn't want to do it anymore. He wasn't working hard enough. He just didn't want to be a doctor. So his dad was not that impressed. He was disappointed. He wasn't very happy. So he sent him to Cambridge University instead. And here he was supposed to be working towards a respectable profession. So think about what a profession is. A profession is a job. So if we wanted a respectable profession, oh, it's hard to say, a respectable profession, that's going to be a job he can be proud of. A job that his father would be proud of. Even though he studied hard, so he worked much harder this time. He also became a keen collector of beetles in his spare time, reflecting his growing interest in nature. So if he's a keen collector, what word might you put in there instead of the word keen? Perhaps avid, that's been one of our speed words in the past. Enthusiastic. After that, he started learning about geology, the study of rocks, soil, and so on. As a result, he was invited to join an expedition to South America on a ship called HMS Beagle. And his job would be to investigate the geology, so all the rocks, and collect wildlife specimens while the rest of the crew mapped the coastline. So the rest of the crew were trying to work out what the shape of South America was, and he was going to collect wildlife specimens. So wildlife specimens are wildlife examples. So it might have been collecting beetles, butterflies, little animals that they found, so that they could study them, find out what they were like, what they ate, where they lived, how they were different to the animals which might live in Britain. So there'd be the wildlife examples. Secrets of the Stones. On HMS Beagle's first stop at Cape Verde, a group of islands off the coast of Africa, Darwin made a fascinating discovery, so a really interesting discovery. High in the volcanic cliffs, he found a layer of rock containing sea shells. Now, that really is a tongue twister. Containing sea shells. So if they're volcanic cliffs, that means that they're cliffs that have been formed by volcanoes. So when the volcano erupts, it sends the lava spewing down the mountainside, and that's creating these cliffs. Now, why is it strange that he would find a layer of rock high up in the. Sorry, I'm going to start that bit again. Why is it strange that he would find seashells high up in the cliffs? Where would you normally expect to find seashells? I'm normally expecting them to find like quite down low, like next to the beach where the sea is. So he's thinking, that's strange. How have they managed to get all the way up here? Because seashells don't grow legs and walk. So what's happened to make them go from being on the beach or in the sea to being up in the cliffs? So this made him think that great changes must be happening to the planet, probably over a very long period of time. Rocks yielded more remarkable discoveries when they reached South America. So when they got to South America, they looked at the rocks and they found more fascinating things. Here, Darwin discovered fossils of extinct mammals alongside seashells that suggested these animals had died out fairly recently. So, if an animal is extinct, that doesn't just mean that it's died, it means that all of the animals of that species have died. Okay, so there's no more left at all. And he kind of suggests that the animals have died out fairly recently. And he's thinking, why would all of this particular type of animal all die at one point? So, what's more, as well, there were no signs of natural disasters or major climate change. So, that might be one reason why a group of animals all might die out. It could be because maybe the volcanoes erupted and covered their houses. Maybe it's because there's been a drought and there's not enough water for them to drink, so they all die. But he couldn't see anything like that. And he's wondering, why would all of this type of animal all die out? So this made Darwin begin to wonder what might cause a species to be wiped out. Life-changing discoveries. Darwin noticed how some of the islands visited by the beagle had their own distinct varieties of certain animals. This was interesting because in those days, people had believed that all the all the world's creatures had been made at the same time by the same creator. If that was so, why bother to make slightly different versions of the same animal? Could it be that the design of life was not as fixed as had previously been thought? So, again, think back to those science lessons. We talked about the varieties, the variations between different animals. So, with the birds, some of them had short, sharp beaks, some of them had long, hooked beaks. And you're thinking, well, why would a creator, a god, create lots of animals that are quite similar but not exactly the same? Because surely they would have just made one type of bird and then moved on to the next type of bird, rather than just ever so slightly changing that beak. So that's what made him think. He said, maybe that it wasn't a creator that designed all of these birds. By the time HMS Beagle had completed its 5-year round-the-world voyage and returned to England, Darwin's thoughts were beginning to take shape. It would take many years, plenty of further research, and numerous conversations with other scientists before he published probably his most famous work on the origin of species. So, numerous, what word is numerous a bit like? It's quite like the word number. So if he's speaking to a number of scientists, he's speaking to lots of other scientists. It would take even longer for his ideas to become widely accepted by the scientific community, so other scientists and the public in general. So we've got there to the end of the piece. Hopefully you've got a good idea now of what the piece is about what the extract is about, and about some of the tricky words that you might not have understood. Now, if you've still got words that you're like, I'm not really sure about that word, but Miss Beck hasn't really explained it, then you need to be using the context of the sentence to work it out. Is it like another word that you know? What can you do to find out what that word might mean? So let's have a look at a couple of example questions before you go on to do your own. So a retrieval question. What did Charles Darwin like to do with his spare time? So first of all, I'm going to highlight the key words that are going to help me out when I'm finding the answer. Now, I'm not going to highlight Charles Darwin because the whole thing is about Charles Darwin. So if I'm looking for him, that's not going to help me out at all. But it's about his spare time. What he likes to do when he's not working, what his hobbies are, that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look back and I'm going to go to the paragraph, which I think is most likely going to be what he does with his spare time. I think it's going to be quite near the start of the text, because the last part was all about when he was on the ship, which he didn't really have much time when he was on the ship. So I'm going to go back to one of the previous, so I'm going to go back to the start. So, I'm having a look in here. I'm skimming and scanning. Can I see anything about spare time or hobbies? No, I can't. So I'm going to move on to the next paragraph. Again, I'm skimming and scanning. Can I see anything about spare time or hobbies? Aha! I've found here similar keywords. In fact, actually, I think they're the same in his spare time. So, what's my strategy now? I'm going to go back to the beginning of the sentence and I'm going to read the whole sentence. Even though he studied hard, he also became a keen collector of beetles in his spare time, reflecting his growing interest in nature. Aha, there's my answer. Now, I don't need to write down the whole sentence. That wouldn't answer the question. It says, what did he like to do in his spare time? So, what did he like to do? He was a keen collector of beetles. So, let's change that into a sentence that answers the question. Because a keen collector of beetles does not actually answer that question. So, I'm going to need to use my own words to explain it a little bit. What did he like to do with his spare time? He collected beetles. So you can see I've used the evidence from the text. I've just made sure that my answer actually answers the question rather than just copying the whole sentence down. Okay, let's look at a vocabulary question. Look at the second paragraph. What does the word thrive mean? So what will I highlight here to help me to answer the question? Well, first of all, I'll highlight where I'm looking because that will help me out a lot. That will save me a lot of time if I only look at the second paragraph. And what does the word thrive mean? So I'm going to highlight the word thrive so that I can make sure I found exactly the right word. So let's go back to that second paragraph. Here we go. Nope, not this one. The one before. There we go. So I'm going to skim and scan till I've got to the word thrive. First of all, I'm looking for TH words. So TH, no, that's theory. That's not good. Oh, let me just change that to a pen. Let's see. TH, nope, theory. That's not right. TH, nice and quick. That's not the right one. I'm sure you found it faster than I have. TH, that's not the right one. Aha, thrive. So I'm going to highlight that word so that I know which word I need to swap in. And again, I'm going to go back and I'm going to read the whole sentence. These changes that help creatures adapt to their environments will be passed on to their offspring to improve the species so that it continues to thrive and reproduce. So now I need to find a word that I could swap in instead of the word thrive. So looking at it, so they're going to adapt to their environments, they're changing, and they're going to pass on these changes to their offsprings to improve the species. So if they're improving the species, they're making the species better so they can thrive and reproduce, so they can thrive and they can have more children. So it's going to be something, if they're improving, they're going to be getting better, aren't they? So if they're thriving, so what could I put in? It could be that they do really well, so that it continues to thrive and reproduce. Could be that they survive and reproduce. It could be, what do you think? Have a little think. What could go in there? Okay, so hopefully you've had a little think there. And let's just double check the question. Does it say a word or a phrase? It says, oh, what does the word thrive mean? So I don't need to swap in one particular word. So it could be a little phrase to explain what it means. So, oh, still not on the right paragraph. There we go. So it could be to improve the species so that it continues to do really well and reproduce. So it continues to develop well and produce. Continues to something else in those words, basically. That wasn't a very good explanation. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, so it develops well. It grows well. It becomes better. So let's have a look. How could I explain that in my answer? So swap to my pen. Here we go. So what does the word thrive mean? I don't need to write it as a full sentence. I can just say to grow and develop well. Okay, and then that's it. That's the answer. So what you'll now need to do is complete the worksheet on Class Dojo. Remember to use either the ABC if you're on an app or a tablet, or the T button if you are on a laptop or a computer to write your answers with the keyboard so they're neat and we can read them. The help session is at 12:30. Log into Teams if you have any questions or you need any help. Remember to read your book for at least 20 minutes every day. Okay, so I will see you later if you've got any questions or if you need any help or if you just want to check what you've been doing. And if not, I will see you for tomorrow's lesson. Bye.